Welcome to the DIFF Circle Festival Strategy little webinar with us today. I actually might get everyone to introduce themselves really quick. Bart, I might start with you.
Sure. Hi everyone. Can we see people there? Oh yeah, there are people there. Okay, I just see the participants down there. Hi. Yeah, my name's Bartholomew Sammut. I'm a Maltese Australian film programmer. I work for the Panorama section at the Berlin International Film Festival, and also started back in 2006 the Exposed Queer Film Festival, which was originally started as a short film festival actually, and then sort of grew a little bit from there. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone today.
Sorry, I didn't. Hey.
Yeah, we couldn't hear.
If you want to introduce yourself next.
So again, I didn't hear, but I'm just gonna go for it. Hi, my name is Penn, Bálint. I'm a Hungarian curator and filmmaker based in the UK, and I'm a shorts programmer at DIFF this year. And I might just pass on to Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a filmmaker based in Dublin. I had a short that did the festival journey about a year ago called Baby Steps, and I'm just about to start my festival journey with a new short, so I will be listening to everything too.
Great. I'm Lisa Ogdie. I'm one of the short film programmers for the Sundance Film Festival.
Hey, amazing. And then can you guys hear me now by any chance?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, stunning. I will introduce myself now. I'm Aisha and I'm hosting today's conversation. And I'm one of the short film programmers for DIFF, and I also curate a program outside of DIFF as well. Actually. So we may get straight into it. So we're going to be chatting about festival strategy today. So I kind of wanted to start off with kind of go through the process of it, if that makes sense. So kind of like for you guys as programmers, and Hannah, also give your 2 cents, please. But as programmers, what are your non-negotiable when it comes to putting a film on screen?
I mean, I would say a big one for me is bad sound. And I think this is also something that we've kind of discussed within our kind of shorts programmer chats. I feel like because film is so visual, often filmmakers get really kind of caught up in just making sure it looks stunning and maybe don't prioritize sound as much. But especially when it comes to, a cinema screening, it can really, really kind of quickly bring the film down. So I think that's a really important thing. And then, perhaps more obvious is things like racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism. We don't really want anything like that on screen. But yeah, if I had to pick one other than those things, it would be bad sound, probably.
I definitely hard agree on that. Lisa, Bart, what about you guys? Any negotiables when it comes to putting a film on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, bad sound is something that would definitely take me out of it. Bad acting is something that I also like. That's just gonna sort of kill the momentum. But I don't know. I mean, of course, all of the terrible things that you mentioned, Penn. But like, I try to think of like nothing's non-negotiable. It's like it's more about what the program is and like what fits in and what we need. And so like it's more of like an evolving discussion, but like sort of my own pet peeves, it's probably like bad acting, bad sound.
And Bart, is there anything for you that comes up? Oh, Bart, they may be frozen.
Oh no.
Oh, they're back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Sorry, it seemed like everyone froze for a second, and it must have been me. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I think I'd agree a bit with Lisa there as well, and also with Penn. I think those are all of the above exactly. Also, I guess would be like non-negotiables. But again, it would, I guess, depend on the program that we're programming for. What are the parameters for that program, and how would you negotiate that? So that would be some of those sort of things that I would take into consideration. If there's a film that I really, really love, but maybe it had really bad sound or bad images or bad editing, or maybe even like, a poor performance here and there, but there was something in it that I really loved, I would probably negotiate the hell out of my own things to try and see how I could fit it in. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So my next question, this is kind of more general for everyone. As a filmmaker, how should you go about finding the right festival for your film? Like, what elements should you be taking into consideration to make that decision?
Yeah, I think it's really important that everybody try to see films that festivals program. Like, so like as you're planning your festival strategy, you think about the film festivals that you want to play in. It's a little harder with short films because they're not as easily accessible. You sort of have to track them down, but it's invaluable knowledge for you. I'd say, like, at least at Sundance on our website, we have like each film usually lists a public contact and you can reach out to them. And most filmmakers would be happy to share, you know, a password protected link if it's not already on YouTube or Vimeo. And just familiarize yourself with what they're selecting. Because if you're, you know, making an experimental, you know, dance film, you know, maybe the festivals that you're targeting don't play films like that. So it's good to know that just when you're building out that strategy, because one, it's going to save you money because submission fees add up, and it's just you're going to be more strategic in where you're focusing.
Yeah.
So to kind of build on that as well, even when festivals don't, or you can't find the actual shorts, the whole film, I think it's possible to get a sense of the sort of thing they program, even just from trailers, which usually are on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Like Lisa said, you know, you can kind of tell if something is a very kind of avant-garde experimental dance film or something a lot more grounded. So I think something I've done my own filmmaking is even just going through those trailers and just really get a sense of, is there anything that fits the vibe of what I have I'm planning to submit.
Yeah, I think it's like really knowing the tone of your film and, you know, the specificity of that, you know, and you can get really specific where it's like, okay, even if it's a comedy, what kind of comedy is it? Is it like a satire? Is it a straight comedy? Is it something a bit more offbeat and kind of weird? And I think, yeah, exactly what you guys were saying, you know, that to do your research on festivals and kind of get a sense of what they might program, and you know, different film festivals. I found that when I was submitting, and I kind of only found this in the process where I was like, oh, there are specific festivals. The two that I had experienced with Vienna and Uppsala both have specific comedy programs.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're looking for that stuff, you know what I mean? They want to fill those programs, they want to find stuff for that. Also, I would say if you kind of know the tone of your film and there are other shorts that, like, you know, maybe you really liked, or there was an element of them you were trying to emulate, or and you can look at their festival journey, you know what I mean? You go, okay, where did they premiere? You know, what was their journey? Where did they submit to, and where did they get in? And then, you know, you can go, okay, well, my film feels kind of similar to that. Maybe, you know, those festivals will like that too.
Yeah.
You summed it up. You summed it up all very well. It's like everything that you said, it's research. It's research, scouring through festival programs, seeing what they program, everything that you said. I like what you pointed out, Hannah, about like actually going to a film and then seeing what journey it took. I think this is also really, really interesting, because then you can kind of base things off. Okay, that film is a bit like mine. Let's see what journey it took, see if mine can also go in a similar path. I think that's actually very smart too. And then also to go to a lot of film festivals too. Go out there and see actually all the films that are being made. I think that's also, this knowledge is very powerful.
So next question. So when you're selecting films for a festival, how much do you consider the audience experience?
I think we consider it quite a lot, but it's not necessarily something that the filmmakers should worry about, is what I would say. I think make the film that feels authentic to you, that you would want to watch, and then it's kind of up to us to figure out whether we think it would suit our audience. I think it's kind of a dangerous path to go down, to start kind of trying to play 5D chess, trying to think, okay, will this festival's audience like this? It's really difficult to hold on to the kind of truth of the story you wanted to tell. And I also think that, you know, sometimes if a film really speaks to us, we are willing to kind of go, this might challenge our audience a bit, but it's so good that, you know, they might actually welcome that. So it's definitely not a hard and fast rule. But yeah, that would be my answer, is yes, but don't. That's not for the filmmakers to think about, really, I think.
I definitely agree with that as well. So then,
Yeah.
oh yeah, so if you want to go on to add to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I completely agree. I mean, we spend a lot of time thinking about it at Sundance, putting our programs together, just because we feel like people aren't watching enough shorts. We want that experience to be great, but that's more about how we're constructing the program and not the individual films. Like it's
Yeah. I think as well for Expose, when we would do that, it would also be about, okay, thinking about, okay, which sort of films would be very interesting for our audience, and then creating the program from there. So again, like Penn said, it's nothing that the filmmaker should at all worry about. They've made a film that's authentic to them. This is then the job that's up to us, but it's always something that's actually in our head. Always, like, what film could be very interesting for our audience? What can also challenge our audience? What would they welcome actually as well? You know, because when you're making a program for an audience, you have to have them in your head as a programmer all the time. Be different if you're making a program for like a market or a work in progress section or something like that. Then it's a different game.
Sense. So then what would you guys find to be like the key differences when it comes to programming shorts and then programming features? Because I find it like, because obviously I'm very much in the shorts world, but like I think when it comes to features, it's like very different.
Maybe I should jump in on that one, because I think, I mean, features, they tend to stand on their own in a way. You know, when you're programming a feature, you're programming it for one slot. But when you're programming short films, you're programming maybe 6 short films to go in one slot. So these short films that you're putting together are a program that you're actually then connecting through either themes or threads or something that kind of, you know, links the films together. So it's a different way of programming, actually, I think, shorts to features. And both are also very exciting and interesting. But yeah, I think there is a difference there for sure.
And so I'm gonna like segue a little bit now into more like the marketing and branding side of things, because I feel like that's been like a bigger conversation for filmmakers at the moment, just because like there's this kind of like rise in like social media and more like I guess like more filmmakers being born out of social media movements and stuff like that too. So like as like the festival industry evolves itself, like how do you see the role of social media and like digital marketing and like filmmakers festival journey like impacting it?
One thing that came to me when I was thinking about that is how it can actually be a great opportunity to increase access when it comes to networking. And, you know, for myself as a disabled filmmaker, I often can't attend the 2-hour networking events where everyone's standing around. But if, you know, I see that there is another filmmaker who was in my screening, I might be able to find their social media and DM them and go, oh, I saw your film in my slot. It'd be great to, you know, chat or message. So I think that's a really big one. But I also think that, you know, it is becoming increasingly vital to have a social media presence because, like we keep kind of alluding to, short films don't necessarily have as mainstream an audience as features. And, you know, I always would like to get these films to as many people as possible if they're not attending film festivals, but for instance, they see an interesting still or they like the look of the trailer, then once you post it online, it might get to them more. So from that side, I think it's really important. I'd like to hope that most festivals will not see it as the kind of cynical side of, you know, we'll program this person because they have 100K followers or something. Or that, you know, maybe we might get to that point with some other festivals. I really don't see it for DIFF and the way that we're thinking about things over here. But yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
Really, thanks so much, Ken. So like any 2 cents for you guys there?
It's interesting what you say about, I hadn't really thought about that, but it is something I did when I went to a couple of festivals abroad, which was when I saw shorts that I liked, I would look them up on Instagram and try and find this actor and be like, oh, maybe I can, you know, see more of their stuff, or you know, like, it's inspiring to follow people and to see their content if you like their work. And to have that, you know, populate your feed a bit more, it's kind of a cool thing. And there's that good resource, the Instagram, it's like Directors Library. Do you know that one? It's like an Instagram page where it's great. It's just like people submit a lot of their stuff and they showcase a lot of people's work, and it can be lots of different stuff. It can be music videos, it can be, you know, shorts, it can be whatever, but it's really accessible. And they do like a roundup every week where they anybody who messages in and it's like, oh, my music video came out this week, or my, you know, thing, that they will kind of show them all on their stories. So like, you know, that side of it is, I think, cool, and getting to see more work that you like and be inspired by is always great, you know.
Yeah, that's really spot on. I think especially what you say about like having that, like, I guess like that extra access to like people's like creativity and like the other work, and like getting to like keep up with them as well. And like this kind of leads into my next question, because like Hannah, as a filmmaker and like as an actor as well, I think like, I don't know if it's intentional, it may not be intentional, but I think you do have like a very clear like personal brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that thing of like, oh, like a lot of people can tell kind of like what to expect from you with the comedy and everything like that too.
Yeah,
So
I think like I was thinking about this earlier, and I guess it was something that I probably curated a bit more because I come from a comedy background. And, you know, initially I would have been doing, before films, it would have been more stand up and sketch based and stuff like that. So that did kind of have to be like, here's my social media, here's where I'm going to put up a sketch or a funny video, or and but I guess I used to think about that a lot more, you know, and maybe play into it a little bit more. And I mean, that you can fall into a bit of a trap with that too then, because then you're like, oh, but then I can't post this other stuff on my social media because it has to be this brand or this, you know, whatever, and that can kind of restrict you a little bit. But I suppose, yeah, the knock-on effect of that is just having, you know, done it for a couple of years, maybe I don't have to do it so much because people go, oh yeah, she's gonna do that weird shit now, you know, and they know that's fine, you know.
I guess like as programmers as well, I think for us at DIFF, just because like we have things like the Discovery Award and things like that, that it is kind of nice to like keep up to date with who the filmmakers are themselves, and kind of like as well as supporting the films, you also want to like support the talent behind the films. So like how do you guys kind of like, I guess, see the importance of a good bio, or like just knowing who the filmmakers are as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that stuff is great. I'd say like in programming, like we don't necessarily have time to like look at any of that stuff like as we're watching films. So I mean, it's usually just watching film to film, and then if something draws me or I have a question, maybe I go and look at like a cover letter or a bio. So they're all nice to have. Is it integral in that process? I would say probably not. But if once you're in a festival, I'd say that stuff is very, very important because it's about promoting you, it's about, you know, publicity for your film. It's also like making people aware, like via social media or other ways, like articulating like who you are as an artist, what you're trying to accomplish. I think writing all that stuff is very helpful in like sort of clarifying your own vision. So I think it's a good thing to do, regardless of whether how much people are reading or just to sort of hone how you speak about yourself and your art.
I'd also just like to quickly add to that, because I don't think everybody realizes this, that when you're submitting through Film Freeway, the kind of pre-screeners often don't have the same access as us programmers do. So potentially the first person seeing your film won't actually have access to things like the bio, the cover letter. So it's definitely not something that major decisions are made based on. And yeah, I agree with Lisa. It's just one of those things that's like, once we've already decided on the film, we'll see, okay, well, who's the person we'll be potentially meeting at the festival? But yeah, it's not the sort of thing that's like, the films are maybe, let's see if we like the look of this person. Absolutely not.
It's definitely film first, always.
Yeah.
Film and story first.
I mean, that's
If
good
you,
to know, you know.
yeah, if you know, it's always good to create a good bio. It's always good to create a short, you know, to have a marketing kit in a way ready, I think is always good. Whether or not it has to be on social media is another question. I think social media can be a double-edged sword as well. So I think you can look at it in many different ways. I think Letterboxd is actually doing great stuff for film fans and film nerds as well, which is really amazing. So there's that avenue as well. There's many ways to try and promote yourself, I guess, during the festival. It doesn't have to be through social media as well.
For sure. And then I think kind of like moving back a little into like, I'm sorry, moving back a little into like film selection and stuff like that too. Like, so obviously, like as kind of like the film industry is like growing and evolving and things like that, like there's been like lots of big conversations around diversity and inclusion. And for you guys, like how is diversity kind of taken into account during film selection, if it is taken into account? Or like how do you kind of like look at those things when you're like looking at your final programs or making adjustments and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's something that we're talking about throughout the process. So, like, as we're putting together our programs, we're constantly sort of reassessing and looking like, where are these films from? What countries? Who has made them? Who's on screen? Who's behind the camera? Like, that's something we're taking into account throughout the process. So, it is very important to us.
Yeah, I think as well. Sorry, Penn, you go.
No, you.
No, I was just going to say it's also a thing that that you observe during the process too. You know, you keep an eye on, okay, what program are we making? Who are we making it for? You know, what are the parameters there? And then, okay, let's look at, you know, everything involved in there, because I think it's very important to take all of this into consideration when you're building a program.
I think what's really exciting about programming for a film festival, as opposed to say being a film studio executive, is, you know, where we get to really think about what is an exciting story that we want to share with our audience, as opposed to having to think about, you know, are people going to necessarily buy a ticket? Is this going to make a lot of money? And I think film festival audiences do expect to be challenged to an extent. So, you know, we never want it to be box sticky. It really is about what are some perspectives and, you know, stories that maybe our audiences haven't encountered that would be amazing to feature on this platform that is unique in this way and different to, you know, just going to see something at the picture house.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then I guess like kind of like looking ahead as well, like what do you guys think almost like needs to change within the festival circuit to like better support marginalized filmmakers?
I mean, I don't know if there would ever be budget to this, but, you know, just more bursaries to attend film festivals. I think it's just making a short film, just even getting to the point of having a finished short film is so expensive and funding is so hard to come by. To then get a really exciting selection, but then not be able to attend can be so heartbreaking. So that's one thing. I think content notices and trigger warnings need to be flagged much more frequently and thoroughly. I think more like accessibility needs to stop being an afterthought when it comes to industry events. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'll just leave it there for now.
Thanks, Penn. Sorry, I'll just introduce myself really quickly because it seems that Aisha has momentarily left us. So hopefully she'll be back. I do have her questions here with me, but my name's Peggy McHale. I'll change my name on this in a second. But I'm also a programmer for DIFF, not for shorts, but for features. And I work very closely with our shorts team. So I hope Aisha won't mind me taking over just for a moment. But thank you, Penn, for answering that. Does anyone have anything more to add on that question?
Oh, I think it's when you're looking ahead, you know, what needs to change within the festival circuit. I mean, maybe it's also, is it a change in the festival circuit, or is it a change in the state and federal funding programs that needs to also change? Because these things lead on to each other. You know, sometimes, like you saying, Penn, you know, it'd be great to have more support to actually travel to festivals, you know. So is this something that should come from the festival, or should it come from the state and federal funding boards? These are the sort of things that I was thinking of in terms of that as well, because, you know, they support each other,
Yeah,
and they're both important.
And is there anything that we as programmers can do to help that and to keep the festivals being these inclusive spaces and push them to be more inclusive?
I mean, you know, going back to content notices, I think that's a big one, and I think that's something we've kind of been implementing already in terms of, you know, we flag things for each other, and then, you know, if that film gets selected, we will flag it to our audience. It's such a small thing that really doesn't cost much, no money, and very little time, that can really be very helpful for more people than you would think. I'll think if there's anything else that I can think of immediately.
It's also like transparency, I guess. You want to be transparent with your audience about what you can and what you cannot offer. And I think it's good to also, like you said, not have this as an afterthought, that these things have to be thought through beforehand, you know, just to, you know, check certain basics that, you know, you could have to meet your audience's needs, you know, and to be transparent about it if you can't as well, and then try and address that.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on that, just dialogue with the audience, with filmmakers, just, you know, getting people's feedback and hearing what's working and what isn't and what needs to evolve and change. I mean, like, festivals are constantly changing and evolving, and I think that's great. That's necessary because we, as, you know, people and culture, it changes.
And in terms of that dialogue with the filmmaker, do you think there's anything more that we should be asking of filmmakers, or is there anything that, given this kind of platform at the moment, that you want to kind of explain why we ask these things of them when they're submitting any kind of, you know, information that we actually are using to make things more inclusive and accessible?
Do you mean in terms of like diversity statistics or something like that?
Well, that, and as well in terms of kind of accessibility for the audience, because I think sometimes filmmakers maybe kind of, it's hard to remember both sides of it, that when you're submitting your film, to remember that there's an audience at the other side, and we act, I guess, as the kind of conduit between them. And is there anything that, you know, we can say to filmmakers who are watching, you know, here's something that we may ask that may seem kind of trivial as extra information to provide, like content warnings or things like that, but are actually very, very important to us to make your film accessible to an audience?
I mean, another thing that would be subtitles, even if the film is in English. You know, you don't know who is going to be watching your film and why they might need that. But, you know, I have some auditory issues that mean that when I click on a film and see that it doesn't have any subtitles, it doesn't affect my decision, but it does make me slightly go, okay, here we go. Let me do one of these. And also, you know, I mean, this is I don't actually know what it's going to look like at DIFF this time, but this is a conversation we've also been having with Grania and Aisha and everyone around, you know, actually prioritizing subtitle screenings and not making those kind of the secondary screenings, because, yeah, lots of people might prefer them for lots of different reasons, and it is such a kind of easy accessibility add-on. Yeah.
Do you do subtitle screenings there, or do you do the inclusive, what are they called, the closed caption titles?
Closed captions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's mainly closed captions, isn't it, Peggy? Or is it both? Well, it depends if it's a foreign language one, obviously, but
yeah, Penn's right. It's mainly closed captions, but we are pushing more and more, both within the office and speaking to our filmmakers, that we have the option. I think a lot of filmmakers are very hesitant, especially when their film is in the English language, to show with subtitles or captions of any kind. But what I find so interesting, and why it's so great to have kind of international representation here, is that in a lot of international festivals where English isn't the first language, it's very standard to have that, because it makes everything just accessible across language barriers and not just hearing barriers. So it's something we're very conscious of, and that we are kind of trying to push for, and be that, you know, industry leading, and encourage that kind of from all sides.
I mean, sorry,
yeah.
I don't want to go on a tangent, but this is just something I've noticed as someone who watches things with subtitles, that there is kind of like a general conversation online about why so many people prefer to watch things with subtitles now. And I think that was maybe this Vice video as well, that was like, why can't you understand people in films anymore? And yeah, it's, you know, the more kind of naturalistic we go with the sound and actors mumble, and that might be very realistic, but you do kind of miss some good writing that way. So yeah.
No, definitely. And sound mixes too sometimes make it difficult. And I think sometimes filmmakers who aren't as embracing of using subtitles also sometimes try to hide them, like, or they make them like blend into the background, which is exactly not what you need when you're using a subtitle.
Not to put you on the spot, Hannah, but I am curious from a filmmaker's perspective, you know, how does it feel to be kind of sending your film out to different festivals and having these requests for different kinds of things coming in? Because I'm sure we all ask for different things from you.
I think it's great because like, you know, it's something that, I mean, maybe you don't think of all of these elements initially, you know what I mean? And so then when programmers or, you know, festivals go, hey, look, we'd love this as part of it because, you know, this and this, you know, ultimately, I don't know, my stance as a filmmaker is like, I want as many people as possible to be able to enjoy my film. Like I want an audience. I want people to see it, and I want people to be able to watch it and to engage with it. So I guess if you're pushing back against that, or you're fighting it, then you're just whacking out a chunk of people who might be able to enjoy your work. You know what I mean? And ultimately that's why you make something at the end of the day, so people can see it, right? So like, you know, I think it's, again, I suppose like there might be a lot of filmmakers who are like, oh, I didn't even think of that, you know, but if you bring it to their attention, hopefully, you know, also a chunk of them would be like, cool, great, will do, you know.
Thank you. That's actually a lovely sentiment, because I guess at the end of the day, that's what we're all here to do, is to facilitate kind of creating that audience for these amazing works that are presented to us. And, you know, like leads us nicely to my next question, which is, you know, I think there's a huge focus correctly on, you know, getting a film into a festival. But I think it would be great if we could talk a bit about, you know, what should filmmakers be thinking about once they're in and the festival is actually happening? How should they best make use of their time when they have been selected?
Well, one thing when you're at a festival, if you can, go and see all the other films.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard when you have a film in a festival because you're very busy. And that's also good. Being busy is good for your film because you want to push it as much as you can. But if there's a way that you can go and see the other films, like I said, I think in the beginning, you know, the more that you see, the knowledge that you have, that's power. You know, that's really useful for you as a development, as a filmmaker too, to see all these films, see what's out there, see what's being made. But then another thing would be, again, to make connections, you know, meet with the other filmmakers, you know, you'll be on this journey with them as well. So when you get to make these connections, they last not just for this film, but maybe for other films. And maybe that leads to other professional development in the future.
Yeah, and I think I would say as well, when it comes to making connections, is trying to connect with people on a personal level. I mean, it's really, you know, being professional is all very well and good, but I think it can start to feel like kind of freshers week after a while. You know, it's like, what do you study? Which one's your film? What are you working on? And it's really hard to kind of like stand out from that. And I sometimes think like, of course, we're going to want to discuss our films. That's what we're here for. That's what we love. But it sometimes can actually end up being more worthwhile to make one or two deeper connections, and, you know, maybe actually go to another event with someone and actually hang out and get to know them a bit better than introduce yourself and pitch your film to 30 people who you will never speak to again.
Yeah, that was
Lisa.
my absolute favorite bit, sorry, about the you know, that process and the film getting into festivals. And I tried to you know, to the best of my ability and budget, go to as many of the festivals that it got into. And it was twofold. It was like, it was so nice being able to just go and see loads of stuff and like see loads of shorts. And then also, and again, I think it probably depends on the festival and their capability to be able to support you in that way, or help you. But, you know, it was one in particular that was great, was Vienna, and they just knew that a chunk of us had come over and were traveling, and would organize like, oh, we've organized like a dinner for all the filmmakers to like go and get some food and have a drink afterwards, and I suppose just made a concerted effort to be like, go hang out, like go go have a nice time together. A chunk of you are coming from loads of different places, you probably don't really know anyone else here, so yeah, go see some stuff together, go just, yeah, like you say, Penn, just socialize a bit, like have a crack outside of that as well. But it was great. It was so much fun, getting to, I suppose, fulfill both of those things, like the lovely social side of it, and then the really enriching creative side of it too, where you're watching loads of stuff and getting inspired.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was going to ask actually.
Say a final thing. Sorry, Lisa was going to say something. You're right. Sorry. No, I just wanted to add a small thing that isn't so much on the networking / social side. I think go to as many screenings of, well, ideally you could go, I'm sure everyone would want to go to everything, and I certainly do when I'm at a festival, but what I found really helpful is watching different audiences' reactions to my film. Something, I also have a theatre background, and I'm sure you find this, Hannah, as well with stand-up, is it's kind of this constant feedback of what's working, what's not. And even though you might not be able to touch your film once it's already playing at festivals, but it is still nice to get feedback on your storytelling or maybe writing. And, for instance, I have parts of a film where it got big laughs from one audience, and other audiences it was like dead silent, and it's just, okay, maybe that's not, it can just be really informative when it comes to your next project, I think, to actually really be keyed into what audiences are responding to as well.
Big time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, as far as like making the best use of your time, go to all of your screenings. Sort of the great thing about like being in a shorts program is like you're going to see other films. Like you should sit through the program, see your fellow program filmmakers. You're going to spend time with them, which is great. So you're sort of forced to socialize with this small group, which is good. And you'll probably make lifelong friends. And then go to as many events as you can. And then also carve out that time to see something completely different from what you make or what you do, whether that's, a documentary or an experimental film. Just find at least one to just go to and sort of clear your mind and sort of get out of the like sort of, spiral of like, am I making the most of this? Am I having the best time? Because as long as you're there and you're making connections with people, you're doing exactly what you need to do. So, and the most important thing is have fun. Like you should be there to have a great time, which I think sometimes we forget when we're just so focused on like, trying to make the best of everything.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say was, do you ever feel that people sometimes get a bit overwhelmed? Because I think,
yeah,
you're at a big international festival and you've got your often your first film, or like it's in your first kind of 5 films that you've made. And it must be really intimidating to kind of know where to go, what to do, which way is up.
No, totally. And I would say also like prepare a couple of like standard answers for Q&As, because we've had like some people who just didn't even think about it. They were so excited and then just sort of like went blank. Like it's just like, think of why you made the film, some good anecdotes. If you're going to take a bunch of meetings, like also be prepared to talk about what you're hoping to do next. That's also, which is, I know you want to enjoy what you're doing now, but that is exactly what agents and managers are going to ask you initially. So at least give it a little bit of thought. And that'll help prepare you sort of speak about what you're trying to do. And like really what you're doing is selling yourself at these festivals. So as long as you're like authentic to who you are and just, talking about what you want to do, I mean, people are going to connect with that.
And maybe also just the last thing, because I think he's touched on it before as well, to take care of yourself when you're there. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's long hours that you want to try and do everything too. And it's great to try and do everything, but at the same time, know your limits. Know how much sleep you need to get. Don't come out of a festival and then crash, because it's not a fun when that happens.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that goes for all of us as well. I think festival staff need to take our vitamins, drink our water, get lots of sleep to make sure we can give everyone else the best experience as well. Thank you guys. Well, it's we've been talking for about 40 minutes, so I'm gonna do a couple of our Q&A questions which have been coming in. So thank you to everyone who's been sending those in, and if you want to send a few more in, I'll be looking at them. We'll do as many as we can in the time we have left. So I'll try and cherry pick the ones that are kind of really relevant to what we've been talking about. But our first question, which I personally find very fascinating, is would you recommend using the marketing feature on Film Freeway as a way to bring your short film in front of a programmer?
I mean, I would personally say no, because we will be focused on the submissions we get. I think, you know, with the marketing tool, it's kind of, there are some smaller festivals who might be struggling for submissions and therefore start to actually scout for them. But when it comes to, you know, festivals like DIFF, we kind of have to work pretty hard just to get through the submissions. So even if sometimes I'll see a little, you know, in that strip where it has the marketed films and, you know, a poster might look great, but I just go, no, back to what's been submitted and we need to get through, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not something that really I've engaged with, really.
We don't actually, I've never used Film Freeway. So
no. Yeah, I think Film Freeway seems to have a lot of really useful offerings, but sometimes you kind of have to remember they are also a business and they need to make their money in a way as well. But yeah, it's good that we can have these platforms to kind of say, like, unfortunately for us, yeah, I would agree with Penn, you know, I see those emails come in, but if you haven't submitted to us, even the people will email us and I'm like, thank you very much. You need to go to Film Freeway because there's so many films that we lose them. They go lost in our inbox, which is, you know, not good for anybody. So yeah, I think unfortunately that seems to be a resounding no to that question. One that I think you might have touched on a little bit earlier, so forgive me if it's a bit of a repetition, but again, I think we all know this is quite an important question. How important are posters or still images? I think once you're selected, maybe I'll add that part of it. Once you're selected, how important are they?
A good still is amazing. A good still is really, really important. Poster, maybe not so much. Poster for your marketing things, yes. Good still for us programmers putting together a program. Yeah. And not just a face. It has to be something that tells a bit about the filmmakers. Sorry, you just jump in.
No, I completely agree. It's like when we're watching the films, not so important, but once you're in a festival, you absolutely need a still image. And I think it's something that shorts filmmakers sort of overlook a little bit. And it's what's going to draw people into your film. And it's really important.
Yeah, I think Hannah, I'm going to shout you out. You had a really good one. It was very like expressive. It showed us what the film was like. You know, I think you got the tone of that kind of deadpan comedy coming through from it. So, you know, if anyone wants to look up the baby steps still that we had, I think that's a really good example. And I hope Grania Humphreys won't mind because I know she's watching, but Irish short filmmakers, please, no more photos of someone walking across a field. There's too many. We need unique images to sell your film, I'm afraid. I'm going to seize my moment to say that. So another really interesting question, which I'm interested by because it's not something I've really thought about, but Elaine has asked that from tracking Academy Award-winning shorts, she feels that they have to show at least 15 Oscar qualifying festivals internationally before they have a shot at the big prize. Does that seem like a ratio that you think is correct, or does that seem way off? She's just kind of wondering, is she kind of looking at the right numbers, I think?
I don't know. I mean, like for us, I mean, sometimes filmmakers will say, I want to play Sundance, I want to win an Oscar. And those are sometimes two very different goals. Like I would say that our tastes at Sundance don't necessarily align with the Academy all that much. So there are, of course, exceptions that get nominated. But I think that the Academy sometimes veers in different directions. So I think, like, sure, there are statistics like that, but I don't know how accurate. It's probably, I'd be interested to see which film festivals and like if there's a corollary there, like most have played X, 3 specific, or I don't know. I'd just be curious in more details, but it's not something that we necessarily have thought much about.
Yeah, I guess I wonder whether that it's a case of correlation, not causation. You know, if a film ends up winning a BAFTA, it might be so good that lots of higher tier festivals have selected it. But I certainly can't speak to the BAFTA or Oscars nomination process. But I wonder if it's more a case of that rather than them ticking boxes of how many it's screened at.
Has there been any case studies of films that have won, short films that have won Oscars and where they've been? Do you know of any? Because I don't think I've seen any.
No,
Mm,
I don't know of any.
I
that
think
would be
there's about
interesting.
to be.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting. I mean, because you of course have to play a qualifying festival, but then like how does that translate into an award? That would be very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. For what it's worth, my 2 cents are with Penn. I think you're right. I think when a film is at that level, as we all know, you know, if you start to look at a festival, a film's run, festival wise, you know, when they're really, really good, they get into a lot of places. So it is kind of a coincidence. Another really interesting question here from Gronia, different Gronia Dwyer. She's wondering that since programmers have to watch such a large volume of films, how important is it for a short to dive straight into the story? I think some filmmakers notice sometimes that some programmers start the film and don't necessarily finish it because they've made a decision already that they don't think it's for their festival. So, you know, how long does it take you to kind of make that judgment? And do you have any advice for filmmakers in relation to that?
I would say it's not necessarily about diving into the story. It's a lot of qualities we look at. But even if we use the example of the person walking through a field, if it's shot in a really interesting way, or we can already see some nuances in the performance that is of a certain quality, some filmmakers won't want to tell their story with a pacing that is very sort of attention grabbing cold open, and that's okay. But I would say something would need to grab our attention, even if it's not necessarily we're straight in with a conversation or a dialogue between two characters. Yeah.
We're watching everything all the way through, so it's not necessarily we're turning something off, but I do think you need to engage your audience, in the film as you're watching. So it's just about pacing and storytelling, but we're giving everything, because something can surprise you. So we feel like, maybe in the first few minutes, someone's still it's finding its way, and then something becomes really great as it goes on. So like we are very sure to give the films the time they need and watch them all the way through.
Yeah. Do you think maybe, and this is obviously other festivals, because I'm sure there are some programmers where it's maybe only a couple of minutes and then they switch away. But I'm wondering, do you think maybe that might be a question of after a short amount of time, it's a quality thing that if, as Penn mentioned earlier, bad sound would be something you would consider to kind of say, okay, not for us, that maybe it's just that few opening minutes can kind of deliver pretty quickly at what level your filmmaking is and whether it would fit the festival or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds accurate. Like, I think whether or not someone's watching it all the way through, they may have an indication in those first few minutes of like, does this make sense for us? Is this something that I would put forward? For sure.
Sometimes you get a sense of a film as well from the first few minutes. Okay, do I have I seen something like this before? Do I know where this could be going? If you're already having these sort of thoughts, then okay, maybe you're not fully then engaged in what they're trying to say. But at the same point, I think it's important that the filmmaker is being authentic to the story that they want to tell. And that's the most important thing. Don't try and make a film for a programmer or for how a programmer is going to watch a film. Make the film you want to make.
Yeah, Hannah, was that a concern for you when you're kind of developing scripts that you're like, is my opening going to be catchy enough, or are you kind of more focused on, I'm just going to make my best film and what happens happens?
Yeah, I think like there's always an element of that in the back of your head in terms of you want to start strong and end strong, you know what I mean? But overall, I mean, I get it's not something I factor in where I'm like, no, to write a really strong opening. I guess you hope it's there, because you hope that the story you're telling is compelling throughout. And you know, you're going into it with that aim anyway. But also, like, sometimes it's kind of nice to play with some expectations a little bit, you know what I mean? And maybe, you know, it's just an example, but the short that I just worked on, it was kind of my intention to make it seem like it's really boring at first, because then something happens that jolts you out of that, you know what I mean? So it, like, you know, you just have to kind of go with what your heart tells you.
I guess I would say, and I think this is very specific to me only, but I sometimes, if I'm finding a film a bit too slow, I'll check to see how far in we are. If it's past 5 minutes and I feel like truly nothing has happened, then I'll go, okay, like I'll still watch it all the way through, obviously, but I might go, okay, maybe a bit too slow. So that's just my mark. I don't know about other people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, guys. I'll go on to our next question, which is one that's come up a couple of times in a few iterations, so I'm going to kind of cobble it together. But people are wondering, how much does, if a short has shown at other festivals previously, if it still qualifies for your festival, so premier status, you know, your rules, your festival's rules around that have not been broken, does that positively, negatively, or not at all affect your consideration of showing that film?
What's the premiere status for Sundance actually? Do you ask for world premiere or?
We don't have one. We will play something that's been online. We will play something that has played other festivals. We are happy to showcase things we love because we feel like people aren't watching enough shorts. But I will say, if you've played every festival in the course of that run, and then you're submitting to Sundance, and we love it, but we have a world premiere, we may go with that world premiere. So I think, like, while we don't have a premiere requirement, you do want to be thoughtful about like where you are playing, because if, like I said, if you've played 30 festivals, we might consider that, but you officially would not be excluded.
Yeah, maybe it is a case of checking the festivals when you're doing your festival strategy, see what has these regulations for a world premiere or international premiere or European premiere, and then maybe work from there in your strategy, because sometimes there are festivals that will require a certain status, and even if it's a bit more open, they might still go for a world premiere. But if your film's shown at a lot and you want to go to another big one, it might be that it's no longer eligible, or like Lisa said, okay, you've had a good run so far, go to others. We're going to choose maybe a world premiere over this one.
But it is important to look at every festival, because particularly, you know, in the US, there are so many different rules around that. Like, I know some festivals you can't be online, some festivals want a North American premiere, some of them only want a US. So like you do have to look at every single festival that you're interested in submitting to.
Yeah, I think Penn, I don't know if you feel that that's kind of the same with DIFF, that, you know, we have a Dublin premier status, and, you know, but we would be cognizant, we know what's shown around the country, so we know that the premier status is valid, but that, you know, people might have seen something before.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I don't think it's a massive concern, because again, short film festivals that play short films, and just film festivals in general, I don't think are attended by enough people for that to be a real concern that, oh no, everyone will have seen this. What I would, the angle I kind of see this question from is more, you know, I mean, what it got me thinking about is whether it can help in terms of, you know, if you add laurels to the thumbnail, for example, because that's something that's actually helped my own film. But what I would say there is, you know, again, officially it doesn't really factor in. But, you know, if you, before you press play, you can see, say, a Sundance laurel on there, you will, you know, even subconsciously press play with a slightly different mindset. But I think just be very selective about what you put on there. I think, you know, just spamming 50 kind of small online festivals usually will send a different message. It can, and yeah, so I would just say, as soon as one of my shorts started getting selected at better festivals, I just added a couple on there, and then it kind of did slightly snowball from there. So I don't, you know, I can't say that was all down to the laurels on the thumbnail, but I do think it can, again, as with very kind of professional looking stills and a nice poster and a nice, well put together bio, it can all just kind of create this neat package of, okay, this is a well put together packaged short film that is worth considering. So it can be helpful in that sense, but I certainly wouldn't think it would be a hindrance that you've played a local festival to really share it with people and now we're going to be like, well, they've all seen it, so no.
And Hannah, was this something you were thinking about when you were looking at the festival run for your film, kind of where you were going to go or where your priorities were?
Yeah, I guess that's always in your mind, and then you have to learn how to pivot as well. But yeah, again, I guess it ties into kind of what we were talking about earlier, and just trying to know what your film is and where the best place for it might be, and where you might want to, if you potentially get into that festival, where you might want to build some of those connections, you know what I mean? Because that's the thing. And I remember chatting to a programmer about that as well, where it's like, if you establish a relationship with a film festival, and you want this to be your career, and you want this to be what you do, and you're going to go on and make other movies, and maybe you go on to your first feature, and you have these relationships, you hope that that's something that you can share in then later on, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, look, I premiered my short here, and now I'm premiering my feature here, and look at this kind of full circle, thing. And yeah, I suppose it's just knowing what you like and what you want,
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to everyone for your wonderful questions. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to everyone, but we're almost at time. So I'm going to wrap it up with what my favorite question is, which does unfortunately put all of our lovely guests on the spot. But I'm going to ask each of you for just one key takeaway that you would like every filmmaker to leave with once we end this session in a few minutes. So that can be something you've said before, doesn't have to be long, just your kind of number one key point. And I'm going to call you out one by one, but Penn, we'll start with you because you're DIFF, so I can put a bit more pressure on you.
I would just say really, really, really try to enjoy the process and making the film for yourself and your collaborators, because it is so tempting to get completely lost in this world of your little festival tracker spreadsheet, and when are the notification dates, and could I get into this festival? And what you actually end up remembering, and that will form the kind of core of your experience, is the creative process. And so don't rush it, and don't just focus on the end product. It's a bit of a cliche, but I just think it's so true. Filmmaking can be the most fun thing in the world, so there's no need to make it about laurels and achievements. Just really try to enjoy the process, and if you can, remember that even though maybe this is costing you a lot of money and it is a bit stressful right now, like there is a real kind of magic and wonder in it, and just focus on that if you can.
Amazing, thank you. Lisa, we're going to go to you next.
Yeah, I mean, I would say have fun as a filmmaker and be authentic to yourself, because really, I mean, it's a little bit what Penn was saying as well, is not getting caught up with like trying to make a film for a festival or trying to make something that's going to fit in this box that you think is going to make you happy, but make the art you want to make, and that's going to resonate with people, because being authentic can be hard and it's vulnerable, but that's exactly what's going to like take you to the next level. So just be true to yourself, make the films that you want to make, and you will find your audience.
Thank you. Bart, what would you like to add to that?
Penn and Lisa just said everything. Like literally, that's like it's funny because it's like the programmers that have the same opinion. It is the process. It's about enjoying that process, because it's not easy to make a film. It can be very hard. It can be very stressful. It's a huge process to go through. And if you can find the joy in that and take away something great from that, then that's really the most important part, And if, again, it gets into a festival, great. If not, okay, then you had fun while you did it.
I absolutely agree. Hannah, do you want to close us out with to your fellow filmmakers, your one thing?
I think like it's, you know, in a way it's what you guys are saying, but I suppose slightly on the other side is just try not to take the rejection too personally. And like, and I guess I think if somebody had said that to me before the start of my, you know, festival journey for my first short, I would have gotten really annoyed and been like, fuck off. But it's, and I learned that through the process, and maybe you have to learn that as well, you know what I mean, and not to like blow smoke up all of your collective asses, but like programming, I learned that programming is a really difficult job, you know, and that was like going to some of the festivals that I did get into and chatting to programmers, and also just realizing like, you know, yeah, I don't know, it can be so specific, and you know, it can be that it was really great and it just didn't fit, and you know, there are so many different reasons, and like I think when you start to learn that a little bit more, then you can just kind of take the pressure off and go, do you know what, it's going to find its home where it finds its home, and it's not a value judgment on what you've done in any way, shape or form.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, I think that's honestly, like from all of us, I can say that that means a lot, and it's true, and we do agree. It's a tough job, but we love all of our filmmakers who submit, and we wish we could show you all, but unfortunately, such is the game. We're ever so slightly over time, so I just have 3 very, very small bits of housekeeping before we finish up. This session has been recorded. It will be available on our website in the coming days, maybe the coming weeks. I don't want to make any promises, but please share with your friends, family, filmmakers, you know, anyone you think might find this useful. If you couldn't get enough, we're going to have another DIFF circle on the 7th of October. This one will be with DIFF, the Galway Film Flat and Cork International Film Festival, talking about, you know, programming for Irish festivals and premiere status and all those kind of lovely, juicy things. So please come along to that. Keep an eye out on your emails. There'll be another sign up link. It'll all be free again, and it will also be recorded if you can't make it on the day. If you have any questions at all, please get in touch with us. There are many, many DIFF emails, most of which come to me, which has become a joke in the office, but hello@DIFF is definitely one that works. So if you have any questions that we didn't get to answer in this moment, I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with the right person or answer it myself. But that's it. A huge thank you to our wonderful panelists and to our lovely, lovely audience and their amazing questions. Thank you guys so much, and we'll let you go and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.